Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into Unit 4, which is all about reproduction. We're going to demystify one of the absolute most remarkable processes in biology. We're tracing the whole journey, right, from cellular replication all the way up to human development, and then getting into the nuts and bolts of how to maintain our reproductive health. I am so excited to guide you through this because, well, it's literally the story of how life continues. So, let's start off with a fundamental question, just to set the stakes for the incredible biological journey we're about to take. Take a second to really think about it. How does a single microscopic cell actually become a fully formed, wildly complex human being? It's just a total marvel of biological engineering. And to understand that end result, we really have to look closely at the step-by-step mechanics that make the whole shebang possible.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First up, asexual versus sexual reproduction. 2. Puberty and how the body prepares. 3. Female anatomy and cycles. 4. Fertilization and pregnancy. And finally, number 5, protecting your reproductive health.
Section 1. Asexual versus sexual reproduction. The very foundation of life. Right, before we zoom in on humans, we kind of have to understand the two main strategies organisms use to pass on their traits. The crucial point here is the massive trade-off between asexual and sexual reproduction. With asexual reproduction, think fission, budding, or when a plant propagates vegetatively, an organism doesn't even need a mate. It's super efficient, honestly. All the good characteristics of the parent get passed right on, basically creating a perfect clone. But there is a pretty huge catch. Because there's almost zero genetic variation, adapting to a changing environment is incredibly unlikely. If the parent doesn't have resistance to a specific disease, none of the offspring will either. Now, sexual reproduction, on the other hand, needs two parents. It utilizes sex cells, or gametes, made through a process called meiosis. Sure, it takes way more energy, but it creates genetic variation. And that variation? That's the ultimate biological armor that helps species survive and evolve over time. Moving on to Section 2. Puberty, preparing the body, focusing on maturation and mechanics. So, before human reproduction can actually happen, the body has to go through this profound transformation to mature physically. During puberty, bodies change so rapidly both inside and out. Physically, we see secondary sexual characteristics popping up. For females, this means hips broadening, changes in fat deposits around the breasts, buttocks, and thighs, body hair growth, and of course, the menstrual cycle kicking off. But you know what we often gloss over? The psychological and social impact. All these rapid anatomical changes can really mess with a young person's body image. Feeling like you have to adjust to whatever is considered normal among your peers, it can take a real toll on self-esteem. It's an incredibly vulnerable time where physical maturation heavily crashes into psychological well-being. And that brings up an absolutely critical reminder. Young people constantly worry if their physical development doesn't perfectly mirror their friends. But the reality? There is considerable variation in the timing of these stages from person to person. It's completely 100% normal for timelines to vary wildly. And despite those differences in timing, the vast majority of people develop into perfectly healthy, normal adults. All right, Section 3. Female anatomy and cycles, the true machinery of life. Let's see how all this builds into the specific mechanics. The absolute powerhouses of the female reproductive system are the ovaries. Located deep inside the pelvic cavity, these gonads have two monumental jobs. First, producing and releasing the female gametes, the eggs. Second, they act like a major hormonal control center, pumping out estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is what triggers those secondary sexual characteristics we just talked about, and it maintains the lining of the reproductive tract. Then, progesterone steps up to thicken that uterine lining, getting it ready for a potential pregnancy. Right next door are the oviducts, basically acting as little highways connecting the ovaries to the uterus, which is the hollow, pear-shaped organ where new life actually develops.
Now, the menstrual cycle is honestly like this brilliantly choreographed monthly hormonal dance. You can really see how the rising and falling of different hormones orchestrates the whole thing. First up, the pituitary gland releases FSH, or follicle-stimulating hormone. That causes an ovarian follicle to mature. And as it matures, it starts secreting estrogen. Next, we get a sudden spike in LH, luteinizing hormone, which triggers ovulation, the actual release of the egg, usually right around day 14. After ovulation, the leftover structure, called the corpus luteum, secretes progesterone to prime the uterus just in case a pregnancy happens. If fertilization doesn't happen, well, the corpus luteum breaks down, hormone levels take a dive, and menstruation occurs. Then, the whole cycle just starts right back up again.
Section 4. Fertilization and pregnancy, the miracle of development. So what actually happens when these biological systems finally connect to create new life? Well, it kicks off with mating, leading to the ejaculation of semen. The male gamete, the supermobile sperm, has to navigate all the way to and then penetrate the much larger non-mobile female egg. When the male and female nuclei fuse, boom, we have fertilization, creating a single cell called a zygote, but it definitely doesn't stay a single cell for long. As it travels down the oviduct toward the uterus, it divides incredibly fast. 2 cells, then 4, eventually turning into a solid ball of cells. Once it finally reaches the uterus, it sinks right into the uterine lining. That crucial step is called implantation, and it's the official start of its growth into an embryo.
Once it's implanted, the embryo's development is just staggeringly fast. Tissues and organs start forming almost immediately. Actually, one of the very first organs to develop and kick into gear is the heart, starting to pump blood around that tiny body. By about 6 weeks, things like the developing ear and eye are actually visible. And then, at the 8-week mark, we hit a massive milestone. All the major organs are formed, and the embryo officially graduates. We now officially call it a fetus.
What's truly fascinating to think about is the physical scaling of the growing fetus right alongside its life support systems. The placenta, which is a disc-like structure at the top of the uterus, attaches tight to the uterine lining and connects to the fetus through the umbilical cord to deliver vital nutrients. You also have the fetus enclosed in a fluid-filled sac called the amnion, or the water sac. This amniotic fluid is an absolute game-changer. It acts like a biological shock absorber, totally protecting that delicate developing life from damage and any unequal pressures.
Oh, and before we wrap up pregnancy, we have to talk about twins, because the biological difference here is so cool. We have identical or monozygotic twins. These guys come from just one single fertilized zygote that happens to split. Because of that, they share identical genetic traits, and yep, they're always the same sex. On the flip side, we have fraternal or dizygotic twins. This happens when 2 completely separate eggs are fertilized by 2 completely separate sperm at the exact same time. Biologically speaking, fraternal twins aren't actually any more alike than regular siblings who are born years apart.
Section 5. Protecting your reproductive health, maintenance, and care.
Understanding the engine is great, right? But knowing how to maintain it is how we actually stay healthy in the real world. Maintaining reproductive health really comes down to daily, deliberate habits. Take menstrual hygiene, for example. Wearing breathable cotton clothing is huge. It stops moisture and heat from building up, which is exactly where germs love to thrive. You also got to change menstrual products regularly to dodge infections. And when it comes to washing the genital area, less is definitely more. Just use water. Skipping the scented products prevents irritation and keeps the body's natural pH perfectly balanced. Make sure you're drinking plenty of liquids too. But beyond just hygiene, think of your cycle as a diagnostic tool. Tracking your period is a fantastic marker for your overall health. Irregular periods can sometimes be an early warning sign for deeper things like thyroid dysfunction or even diabetes. Oh, and getting an annual full checkup? Absolutely non-negotiable if you want to catch potential issues early.
We also have to stay super vigilant about sexually transmitted infections, or STIs. These can cause everything from mild discomfort to severe systemic disease or even sterility. When we look at the pathogens behind the most common STIs, a really crucial medical reality pops up. STIs caused by bacteria or protozoa, stuff like chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, and trichomoniasis, those can typically be cured with a round of antibiotics. But viral STIs, like AIDS, currently there is no cure. And that's exactly why barrier protection and regular testing are just vital, non-negotiable pieces of your reproductive health toolkit.
So we've covered a ton of ground today, from the cellular trade-offs of asexual and sexual reproduction to the profound transformations of puberty, the highly orchestrated hormonal cycles, the absolute miracle of early development, and those critical steps for maintaining your health. Knowing how this incredible biological engine works is just step 1. The most important question I want to leave you with today is this. Now that you really understand the immense complexity and the fragility of your reproductive system, what daily choices are you going to make to protect it? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep asking questions.